Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us for tonight's presentation in the Piedmonters for Resources, Advocacy, and Information in Special Education's Neurodiversity Speaker Series. We're really excited to have Maisie Soetantyo presenting tonight. Maisie is the co-founder and director of the Catch Clinic, a family services agency providing relationship-based programs for families and individuals diagnosed with autism spectrum conditions. She also recently founded the nonprofit Autism Career Pathways to help expand job opportunities for autistic people. Just a note before we get started, if folks have questions during the presentation, you can put them in the chat. If anyone would like to send a message to me directly, I'll be happy to keep track of questions and to help ask everyone's questions to Maisie at the end of the presentation. Thank you for joining us, Maisie.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone, for joining me tonight. And I'm going to share my screen. And also, if someone, my co-host, can keep track of noises, if someone's not muted, to just help me mute the source of the sound so I can stay focused. So I'm going to get started. Okay. All right. So today's topic is supporting autistic students' communication and sensory needs. I'm going to go full screen now. Okay. So my name is Maisie, and I am an autistic inclusivity consultant and a longtime family coach. I actually have worked with autistic kids for about 30 years, pretty much in my throughout my adult life. And I started as a behavioral therapist. So I was a formal behavioral interventionist, and I shifted gear to relationship-based certification program that I have been doing for 20 years now. So I started with working with autistic kids as a therapist and became a trainer to therapist and work my way up as a clinic supervisor for Center for Autism and Related Disorders here in San Jose. And then I felt that after doing behavioral intervention for about 12 years, something was missing. In particular, I was not able to help my clients really figure out how to nurture relationships and friendships with other people, including family members. So that was the piece that I felt like, with all of these creative ideas and collaboration with other professionals, it was really hard for me to figure out the whys. So I think intuitively, I just knew I was missing something, and there has to be something better for autistic children. And I got certified in RDI, which is a relationship development intervention. And in RDI program, we only work with parents. We are basically parent coaches. When we work with our clients, the purpose is to model for parents. And I love that. As a mom, this kind of approach, relationship-based, more like in line with floor time, DIR, it really fit me. And I learned a lot during the past 20 years that I've worked with parents, and really immerse myself in family culture with an autistic family member. And my master's was in curriculum and instructional design. So I love designing curriculum. My mind works in bullet points, actually. And I really enjoy designing all kinds of curriculum. Now, because I work with my clients using a relationship-based approach, I watch my clients grow up They're now in their 20s. Some of them have multiple degrees. And yet it was really, really hard to get a summer job, even at Domino's, even though they eat pizza every day. And I consider them a pizza connoisseur expert. So because of that, in 2019, I started the nonprofit Autism Career Pathways. And I really want to use creative ways to be able to educate and empower our community, meaning community at large, people be outside of the autism and the autistic circles, because the world is a bigger place. And if we're gonna ever make a change in that, over 85% of autistic college graduates not being able to find jobs or being underemployed, I think together as a community, we have to make a difference together. That's why I started ACP. I wanted to really challenge people's mindset that non-speaking people or autistic people with significant challenges, people who are more impacted by their autism, can have a meaningful quality of lives, including non-speaking people. So I really want to redefine what is quality of life and what does meaningful work for everyone, and that could look different for everybody. And we love hosting engaging online events through Instagram Live, Facebook Live, to really just showcase all kinds of autistic talents. And lastly, I'm building an autistic-led and special interest-based career mentoring platform. So to the right, these are wonderful young people that I was blessed to work with. And we've got Audrey, who's a talented artist. And we have Mateo. Mateo Musso is also in the East Bay. He is a nonprofit founder of CAS, and he has written these 5 books using his letterboard. And then here at the bottom left is Alex, the proud owner of the Big Al's Toffee. And he also does calligraphy. And last, this is Ben, and his special interest is tortoise and turtles. And he wants to have a pet store selling this specific type of animal. And all these dreams and special interests are valid. And that's why I created Autism Career Pathways. All right, so let's talk about autism. And we're going to hopefully at the end of the presentation today, that you'll be able to think about it in a little bit different way. Autism is a diagnosis of neurological differences, meaning that our minds is built differently. I was born autistic, and my husband actually have known all along that I was autistic. It kind of makes sense how autism and psychology, human behavior, and communication have always been my special interests. And but of course, you don't really see it until you're able to accept it. And that's really what happened to me. I grew up with multiple autistic people in my family, my grandma, my dad, my brother, and other families. But I'm the first one who is formally diagnosed with autism. And the way I like to explain autism is that our mind is built differently, and our sensory processing is also built differently. So a good way, easy way to explain it is some people like to use Apple phone, some people like to use Samsung phone. We need a different manual to be able to operate our phones, right? So autism is like that too. Now, you will hear autistic adults say that autistic autism doesn't need therapy, but co-occurring conditions, comorbidities that often comes with the diagnosis of autism does need to be treated. Okay, so that's separate. And later on, I'm going to introduce you to a young man who is using a letterboard to communicate, and he also talks about his apraxia. So he has a co-occurring condition. When we talk about a different kind of manual, we're talking about a better way to understand how autistic people communicate and how neurotypical communicate and be able to meet each other halfway. And that's another goal of mine for tonight, that I will be able to help you get some ideas. We are definitely different in our sensory processing. In fact, I think over 90% of the way autistic people process information is different than the neural majority. And I'll explain about that later. We'll talk about communication a little bit later. And thinking is also different. I think the way we categorize information is very different. When you think about everything in our lives, there is an underlying pattern to it, right? So I like to use sports analogy. In sports, there's always that back and forth or sender receiver. It doesn't matter what kind of sports you're watching, but there's always that underlying of me, you, back and forth, sender receiver. When you are, for example, doing your daily chores or cooking, the underlying pattern is actually, when you think about it, is moving one object from one spot to another, right? So grocery shopping, you're moving items from the shelf into your cart, and from the cart into when you check out as well. So there's these little patterns that is really the foundation that builds our understanding, and it's an imprint for us to be able to navigate our life, our day-to-day life, right? So with autistic people, because our sensory experiences are different, we actually have a different system. We create our own categories. So you may have already heard that some autistic people see the world in colors. Some autistic people really see the world in words, or like just words, or maybe sounds. Some people are really gifted and they have very strong auditory memory, for example, right? So that's the differences in the thinking pathways, and also information processing. The way we process information is very different. It's not linear compared to neurotypical people's way of processing information. Autistic people have a distinct internal and external experiences. So what I mean by this is that the way we absorb sensory stimuli is different. The way we perceive things, the way we think about things. So let's say you see a beautiful picture of, let's say it's a beautiful picture of a ballerina dancing, right? Now, a neurotypical mind would be able to see that and perceive it very, very quickly. And maybe the picture, the painting of the ballerina really make you think of your experience as a young ballerina and experience of your mom taking you to the ballet school, for example, right? Now, if you're autistic, you see this painting, it has a different flavor, it has a different feeling, but what this autistic person might see might be how the hair of the ballerina like falls in a certain way, or just the colors of the paintings, the details. So what stands out to autistic people, it's really driven by their sensory perceptions. So I hope that explains the difference. And as a result of that, of course, if you feel and process information in a different way, then the output is also different, right? Autism is a different developmental trajectory. I love saying that to parents. It just means that autistic children need more time to figure things out. And just because we are slower to process information, it doesn't mean that we are not smart. Just because we can only communicate through typing and writing, it doesn't mean that we don't have beautiful stories to share to the world. It's just different. We will get there when we get there. But boy, if we have the support that we need as early as possible, that story is going to unfold a lot earlier, and it would be so much better, less trauma, right? As someone who has sensory processing difficulties, as well as auditory processing difficulties, as well as learning disability, I have number dyslexia or dyscalculia. I really struggled with school growing up. I worked really hard to be a good student, really, really hard. And the anxiety level was very high for me. But all the extra help really didn't make a difference, and school for me was just fake it till you make it. And it's more of like surviving it for me instead of thriving and enjoying the experience, for example. But I eventually got my master's degree at the age of over 40, So for the parents here, I just want to tell you that your children, autistic children, will get there when they're ready. And you'll just celebrate just as much, of course, just the way my parents did with me. Okay. And, autistic people have always been here. My grandmother, and we've always been around. It's not like we see more autistic people today. In fact, there are so many undiagnosed autistic adults today, right? Okay, so let me just make sure I didn't skip this. Okay. All right. Now let's talk about sensory differences. So I'm going to share a lot of examples from my own lived experiences. We already talked about how the sensory processing system is calibrated differently. It's not that it's wonky or defective, it's just very, very different. So for me, I am very hypersensitive to sounds and smell and certain kind of movements and brightness to the point where like I'm internally very, very distracted. So for me to be able to sit here tonight to present, I had to do a lot of preparation to self-regulate. So the way I self-regulate is I do my pacing around the house. I have my metal fidgets with me all the time. And autistic people really need that time to regulate before big events for us to show up the best that we can. Because during the event itself, like that's like going to school and being expected to process what's going on. You really have to have the power, the battery meter, to block out all these sensory stimuli. There's nothing you can do if you're sitting next to a chatty friend in class, for example. There's really nothing wrong. I mean, there's nothing you can do with like not just navigating day-to-day activities because everyone else is doing it. So you have to do it. But the effort that it takes for autistic people to be able to participate, it takes tremendous energy to do that, right? We have to block out unimportant sensory stimuli, and it takes a lot. So hypersensitive to all the stimuli. And for me also, these hypersensitivity, if something is very, very loud or it smells very strong, chemical smells, it would just trigger like a migraine. So I suffer from chronic migraines 24/7. And it lasts for weeks and weeks, and it's exhausted. So some of your children might not sleep well at night because they sleep cycle is disturbed by the faintest sounds or light blinking in a room. We will just wake up like this, and then it's very hard to fall back asleep. So that's totally me. Or it could also, some of us are hyposensitive, right? It just takes us a while to connect mind and body. It just takes us a while to be ready. So sensory processing differences, you also notice here, I prefer to use differences instead of disorder, because I don't consider myself a disordered person. I just have differences. SPD affects our ability to process information at any given moment. So imagine that you have distractions coming from the outside as well as your own thoughts, right? This loop that you have inside your mind. So the distractions come both ways, internally and externally. And for us to get back on track, it takes a lot of energy to do that. And therefore, our ability to process information is slower at times, right? Imagine if you don't sleep well the night before, or you just happen to be in a room with a lot of distractions. You're going to need second and third chances to be able to generate an output. That goes without saying, right? It's like trying to talk to somebody during like a concert, for example. It feels like that, right? That's how hard it is for an autistic person. So school is like that every day. It's party for everyone, and is a lot of celebrations and successes for most students, but it's not the case for students, autistic students, or students who struggle to understand information. And it always feels like the goalpost is always moving. So I understand how it felt when by the time I'm caught up with this page and what my teacher was saying, everyone else has already moved on. And that also happens in social situations, by the way. Okay, so the way we self-regulate, of course, we do stimming. I don't have a slide about stimming, but in general, stimming, everybody actually stims, right? Stephen Curry, how does he stim? He chews his mouth guard and he does it. He doesn't even realize it. And we see him do that all the time. Why does he do that? He does it to self-regulate. And everyone stims in a certain way. But I think for autistic people, that stimming expressions serves a very, very important, we need it. It's like breathing for us, right? So I've had the same stim since I was a little girl, for example. It didn't change. And now that I'm formally out, with family members, they try to support me if I need to self-advocate for my sensory needs. That's the best situation. So I feel very privileged to be able to do that. I don't have to mask at home at all, right? So for your autistic students, autistic child, the need to stim a lot of times is for self-regulation. It's also to express emotions, all kinds of emotions. And sometimes it doesn't have any purpose. We just do it because it feels very natural to us, like dancing to a favorite song, right? Okay, so stimming, SPD, sensory processing differences, impacts our ability to respond to others. So for example, when I'm outside, if you say hello to me or call my name, I may not realize that you're trying to get my attention until much, much later, because it just takes me longer to process information, especially in a really distracting environment. When it's the best time of the day for me, and it could be any time during the day when I'm like, just everything feels right to me, my mind and body are connected well, then I can respond just as well as anyone else, right? But for your students or your children who are more, they have higher sensory needs, it's very hard to predict. It also, sensory processing differences influences our lifestyle, the clothing that we wear, people we hang out with, events we can join and not join, the way we learn, how we prefer to learn it's very different than neurotypical people. And like, for example, I can't multi-process, or I can't multitask, for example. I've always known that. So the way I survived school when I was at UCLA, I would buy all the notes fortunately, they sell the notes. So I would come to class, but if you ask me questions about what did you learn, what happened, I wouldn't be able to give you the answer, because that's just, I can't process auditory instructions very, very well. I can't listen and write at the same time. I have to pick one or the other, right? And still need time to be able to see the materials visually, to process it, and 2 times, 3 times, again and again, right? So our learning preferences is different. And of course that affects career choices. If I was good in math, I wouldn't be a psychologist. And the reason that I became took psychology was, in psychology, we only had to take statistic, and statistic provides you with context, which kind of makes sense to me. So I guess everything happened for a reason, and here I am today. Okay. So, all right. So supporting sensory needs. So this is an important slide. I think even for me as an autistic adult who was diagnosed very, very late, I mean, I didn't know what I didn't know. And many of you in this room will also feel like, well, I didn't know that. People don't know what they don't know, right? Even as I've been autistic all my life, but I didn't know that my right as an autistic person is to stim and to voice what I need as a true autistic person. I didn't know that was my right to do it, and I learned from so many other autistic adults, and it's that process of unlayering, rediscovering me as an autistic adult is still in the process, and your children need support to be able to do that as well. So I think when parents ask me, so how can I be the best parent that I can be to my autistic child? And I love to share this story about my parents, and particularly my mom, because my mom had 3 of us, 3 autistic people. And I think I was the easiest one in the family, because I was a high masking person, but I kind of found a way to just stim my way, like stim after school, to do my repetitions after school to self-regulate, where my dad and my brother, they didn't have that so much. So my mom had to kind of support the three of us the best to her abilities. And I know it was really, really hard for her. The hard part, of course, the sensory meltdown, it was like a whack-a-mole. Like it was not this person, then it would be the other person. We just take turns, especially at the end of a long day. It was very, very difficult. And the trigger was just some simple, stupid things, right? So, but I was very privileged and very blessed in that my mom really appreciated my effort. And it was not common in an Asian family who typically put a lot of emphasis in academic success. My parents were not like that. My mom advocated for me because she saw, even with extra tutoring, extra time with my mom trying to help me catch up with my homework, and the anxiety was still there for me to like wake up at 4 a.m. I didn't even need an alarm to wake up. If there's like a math presentation or math test, I would just wake up because I was highly anxious because I knew I wouldn't be able to perform accordingly. So I think my mom was very supportive, because if I got a C minus, for example, we would all go out, pile up in the car and go get ice cream, that to celebrate. So I was very lucky that my effort was always celebrated, even though it was not as good as what the other people were achieving. And that's definitely, as parents, I think our job is to be able to be a really good detective for our neurodivergent children. And the way to do that is we really have to put on a different set of lens to be able to really nurture the person and help the person really embrace his or her, their identity. Because it's not easy, I know, for kids who cannot say to you, "Mommy, that song is too loud," or "I don't understand that," or "this is boring for me." Your kids probably can't say that, but actually they do give us a lot of clues, don't they? They wear their emotions on their sleeves. You will know as a mom when our kids feel angry or sad or feel very, very incompetent in school. We see it. It's going to affect the way they sleep. It's going to affect the way they be able to eat. It's because they're coming home with stress, or you see that every Friday it's like, just really, really tough because they've tried to put it together during the weekdays to do the best that they can, if they're high masking especially, and by Friday it just boom and crash, right? So those are the clues that as parents we have to really pay attention to and understand that there's no quick fix. It's just having an open conversation and inviting their input to be able to problem solve. So normalize the terms and narrative used to self-regulate. Stimming is no shame to use that. So unfortunately, many parents feel very ashamed that their kids are hand flapping or doing all these stimming expressions out in public. But for us to be able to participate in the real world, we need to have that stimming expressions, right? So sensory breaks, stimming, sensory overload, meltdown, fidget tools, this needs to be part of your family vocabulary, because we all stim, we all need our routine, we all need sensory breaks. Use these words so we can model for our kids and empower them to be able to ask for sensory breaks at school when they really need to walk away to regulate, for example. How to help autistic kids problem solve starts from home. Okay, so we want to, of course, involve students as much as possible when creating their sensory profile, because we can't go inside their mind. We can do best guesses, but if your student is able to communicate, maybe choosing pictures or using printed cards or photos, you want to for sure follow their lead. So a really good resource I want to give you is Autism Level Up. This is all, I'm going to mention some organizations and platforms that are autistic led, and they are autistic occupational therapists. So Autism Level Up is definitely a must visit and must download, because they have a lot of resources for classrooms that you can use in a supportive way and in a not in an empowering way. So this is what the other thing about sensory breaks and the way we prefer the flow of our day for autistic people is different. So we actually don't talk about life-work balance. For neurotypical people, we talk about that. That's what everybody's doing, right? Going to work 8 to 4, 8 to 5. That's what everybody's doing. But if you're neurodivergent, you have unique combination of needs, and you have to really pay attention to your natural and most productive and always fluctuating sensory needs. And so your day it's more like life work integration, if you want to call it. So that's why remote jobs are great for autistic people, because we might feel very connected, very present at 8 o'clock at night. So if your students want to do homework at 8 o'clock at night, it's fine. You just have to empower them to pay attention to what their body and mind telling them to do. Okay. Empower students to plan for sensory breaks, ask for them, problem solve, and choose ways to fulfill sensory needs. I mean, that's a lot in there. And for the parents at home, I think we are all creatures of habit. So for example, if you walk into a dark room, you just automatically turn on the light, right? It's as adults, we just do a lot of things in autopilot, for example. And when we're doing that in the presence of our autistic children, we're missing opportunities actually for them to problem solve, right? So if you walk into the bathroom with your autistic child, what would happen if you don't turn the light on? Would that then they realize, oh, I can't see. Let me turn the light on. Where's the light switch? So for the parents here, I would like you to think about what has been such a habit for you to do when you are with your autistic child or autistic student, and what would happen if you actually remove yourself from the picture, and would that empower your autistic little person to step up? Because problem solving is so important, and so many autistic kids that I work with, it's not that they don't have the skills, they don't have the abilities, they have all that, but they just don't, they're not used to allowing themselves to make these decisions. To make big decisions, you have to start with the smaller decisions. So help be a good detective and figure out how you can set that up at home or in a classroom setting, so that you can empower your students to really make these small decisions and feel good about it. Right. Okay. So the next one is about working with students to establish best productivity flow in the classroom. I talk a little bit about this, about for us, it's really work-life integration as autistic adults. And for students, for autistic kids, they should also have a mini version of that because it's really important to figure out what your body needs and under what conditions you can show up the best way, and really respect that everyone in your family or in your classroom, the way they do it is different, right? Okay, so Autism Level Up has a lot of these resources that you can download and print out and use. Okay, let's see. All right, so let me just stop sharing so I can see your faces because I can't see. Is everyone doing all right? Okay. All right. Okay, good. Okay. So I'm just going to keep going. And maybe I'll do, okay. At some point, maybe I'll just give you a 5-minute break and then we'll continue. So I will continue now. Okay, best practices for sensory regulation needs. We will always want to start with the place of respect and compassion instead of talking over and taking over students' sensory regulation strategies. Believe me, especially for the autistic middle and high schoolers, they feel so embarrassed already with all their autistic expressions. They would stim while they're hiding because they don't want people to stare. They don't feel empowered to ask for help. When I work with autistic teens, it's heartbreaking to me. And the sensory meltdown is real. Sensory meltdown, autistic adults have sensory meltdown too, of course. And it's like where it feels like you black out and you just have to get everything out, and it doesn't look pretty and it's hard to describe it, but we need that outlet, right? It has built up to that point. If you have to meet other people's expectations and you're doing the best that you can, and the anxiety and coping with that and not being able to stim, it's painful. It's sad. I would actually, when I was a little girl, I would break out in hives. That's one of the signs that I was feeling sensory overload. I would just faint, like the world would just close on me, and it was a problem because it was a sensory overload. It was just my body is trying to tell me that's enough. You shouldn't do this anymore. And that's how that was my shutdown. I would just fall down. And your kids would do different versions of this, right? Experiment with them. I work with autistic adults where they would tell me, well, I wasn't allowed to stim, so they don't have any fidget toys like this one. I love metal fidgets because they're cool to touch, and I have a collection of them. I can put them in my pocket. We have so many cool fidgets now. My favorite fidget company is Kaiko Fidget. And they create this fidgets using bicycle parts. And Kai is an autistic teen. And so experiment. So if you are in a situation where your autistic family member or autistic student feel like they're not allowed to stim or they shouldn't, and they're very embarrassed about it, so stim together with them. I would bring out all of my stim toys, just experiment using different senses. And then I would observe which one they tend to spend more time doing. And also they would vote. These are the best 3 that makes me feel good. It smells good to me. It feels great to touch, right? So they give clues, but some of them can also say, I like this because of this and this and this. So normalize sensory needs and accommodations, okay? And please don't make students work for access to sensory tools, breaks, and stimming, because that's like telling someone, stop breathing or stop dancing to the music that you like. So figure it out with them, especially for harmful autistic expression. Work with the students to compromise, and work with your occupational therapists, team members, to be able to explore safer ways. And always provide context. Remember, context doesn't come to us naturally for autistic people. That's why I don't understand jokes often, or I ask a lot of why questions, because I want to know the first step that I need to take in this conversation or in this project. That's why we ask a lot of questions. That's why we repeat ourselves, because it has an important function to us. We want to do it right by you. That's the way we can do that. Anyways, I digress. Okay, a couple more minutes. About autistic communication. Okay, this is a collection that belonged to Alex, Big Al's Best, my toffee connoisseur guy. So I knew him since he was 3 years old. I was actually his ABA therapist and supervisor. And he always had this special interest of collecting and grouping objects by colors and shapes. And I love how his family just let him have his own corners, the different spots around their house. You would know, well, this is Alex's corner. And his mom was always saying, well, I've been looking for that spoon forever, but they just allow him and give him space to be himself after school. He has his routine. He loved watching Barney, even though he was like 15, 16, he's 28 now. He still loves Barney. So what? It's a special interest. There's no shame to that. And it's driven by special interests, autistic communication. That's how I find other people to talk about sports, because that's my special interest that was introduced by my dad. So now with all the dads I work with, I can always have an icebreaker by just talking about sports, because sports is universal, and it has helped me understand nonverbal communication channels, but through watching group sports, right? So special interest is not just a hobby, it's more than that. It gives us a safe zone. So I have autistic teens who they have a collection of marbles that they put in a bag, and after school they shift through those marbles and just do that for half an hour straight. Special interests are often the source of that is sensory positive sensory input, right? For Alex, this obviously gives him positive visual input, but guess what? It also has helped him to develop I don't have a picture of him working, putting the toffees into bags, but it looks pretty much like this. He's he's very organized. His work ethic is amazing. Once he knows how to do something, he'll organize his workspace, and he goes from left to right, and he doesn't stop until he finishes. Right? So it doesn't happen overnight. He learns new tasks very, very quickly, because he's got a system that once he knows what's expected, he creates a system and he does it beautifully, perfectly. Influence. Yeah. Okay. Hang on. Yes. So we are actually very social. So it's a myth about autistic people that we don't want friendships, that we're aloof people. We don't really need to have relationships, and that's not true. I can be very, very social. I've met so many autistic connections online. We prefer to connect with people online because it gives you more control to do that. Can I hang out with family members extended? Sure, but I want to be in control in how I do that. I just need to know exactly what's going to happen and when it's going to end, because I just need time, or I'll just take breaks, right? And when I'm not able to do it, I sense it. If I'm already having a migraine, I just can't. If I go out to see a movie, it's just, I'm going to feel sick for a long time after that. So it's qualitatively and quantitatively expressed differently. So this is, I'm going to show you a video showing how it's different qualitatively and quantitatively for autistic people, the way we use verbal and nonverbal communication channel. So so I think this is a good point to stop it for 5 minutes to stretch, and then I'll continue. All right, so we come back in at 7:55, 7:56. Okay. Okay, so let's continue. So the video I'm going to show you is going to spotlight how a human being, a little baby, use all communication channels. So 80% of human communication is actually captured using non-verbal communication channels. So I'm talking about facial expressions, use of eye gaze, and vocal play or vocal inflections, and also how far apart we're from each other, and also hand gestures. So, and the speaking channel, the mouth words, we often call that, is actually just about 20%. Now, autistic people use all these channels as well, but the ratio might be different. So for eye contact, one of the first thing I let go after my formal diagnosis is actually letting go of my eye contact during a conversation or when I'm teaching a class. I find that I can understand and participate in conversation much better when I let go of my eye contact. When I have to use my eye contact, something else will have to go in my processing. So, and every autistic person is different, but that's a really, really good keep in mind. So this video I'm going to show you is actually a video of my baby then. She is actually 17 years old today. This is Emma, and I'm going to show you a short video of her playing peekaboo with daddy. And I want you to pay attention to the part where dad knew how to stop playing. And I want you to kind of pay attention to why and how did dad knew that she was not into it anymore. Okay.
How about this one? Bump. Peekaboo. Who's there? Peekaboo.
That's great.
Who's there? Peekaboo. Peekaboo. Who's there? Peekaboo. I see a little nose and a little mouth. Who's under my hand? It's Emma. Peekaboo. Peekaboo. Look, we can actually see your neck for a change.
Okay, so can anybody volunteer respond to my question? How did father know? How did he know when to stop? What did Emma do in that particular moment?
I'll jump in and say she started turning her head away and she was pushing with her hands.
Yep, exactly. So she, at the beginning, she was really into it, and you heard her reciprocating using vocal play, and then she just changed somehow. And my husband, even though he was married to a therapist, I wasn't really giving him any instructions, but I think parents know intuitively how to coagulate and make this adjustments. Right now, gaze aversion is very much part of meaningful human communication, and unfortunately, the moment your child is developing differently, or the moment your child receive an autism diagnosis, eye contact is the one thing that seems to be like, if the child is looking at other people more, that's a good sign of progress, where it's actually not, because the reason that two people are looking at each other, because we have the shared intention to connect and share the experience in that moment. And for autistic people, they're more likely to use less eye contact because the other channels of communications are more functional to them, right? And for baby Emma, like using all channels of communications are so easy. And this communication loop between her and her dad just unfolds. And that's how the growth mindset kicks in very, very early on, and very easy. Now, imagine if you have an autistic baby, an autistic toddler who might hand flap and smile sideways instead of smiling at you, then of course it would feel quite foreign to you. But, this is where the adjustments can be done, like from the parents also, that when you shift your perspective, right? Okay, so that's one video. Let me think if there's anything else I want to spotlight. Yes, I talk about gaze aversion. Okay. All right, so let's talk about the whys of autistic communication. Same purpose. We do want to share, of course, with other people. We want to have a sense of belonging. That's why autistic people mask. We mask actually to survive, but it's also driven by we long to have friends and be accepted amongst peers, right? To communicate a level of trust and interest. So when I work with my clients, we just hang out, and there's a level of mutual trust and unspoken understanding that we're here together, and it really doesn't matter what activities we're doing, but you and I are here together. And when I work with my non-speaking clients, that's the same principle, that I observe them and I follow their lead, and they do the same with me. And it's really amazing to be able to be in each other's lives, all this time, and for them to be able to come to me for whatever reason. Trust is earned, is not given. And I think we forget about that because we think that we're the professional and we're adults, or we're parents who know better. And we all have much more experiences, but in order to share our experiences, we have to meet our children, our students halfway, right? We also communicate to self-advocate, and we may not do it verbally, but I think our body language, our expressions, it's very clear when we are asserting ourselves. We're asking for space and respect. We're asking for help. Some of your children will pull your hand or bring things to you. I love to just sit with my husband and just hang out, because at the end of the day, I don't have my mouth words to speak anymore or to participate. So I want to be able to listen to my family members, and they know that's the best that I can do for that night, and that's okay. So I'm very, very lucky to be accepted the way, as me. Self-guiding, talking out loud. So that's actually a good thing. I love actually wearing a mask now after COVID, because when I'm out and about, I'm in a more uncertain situation. When I'm in the car and I'm out in the community, that's more challenging sensory-wise for me. So I need to guide myself to regulate and to find places and to focus. So thinking out loud is a really, really good way. Everyone should do this. You should model this with your kids. Just doing the I statement, doing the declaratives, and definitely model that you have a hard time too. And a lot of times we don't get what we want, or we work hard for something and it just doesn't happen. Because guess what? Autistic people think that they're the only ones struggling. And we're by nature, we're perfectionists, right? So it's really hard when you're such a perfectionist, and you think that you shouldn't make mistakes or starting over again, so use self-guiding to model that relationship is imperfect. And just in life in general, there are a lot of unexpected turns. Self-preservation to communicate the need for space and a break. Yes, absolutely. Masking. I don't know if anyone has questions about masking. You can ask me about that later. So same fundamental functions, but different communication expressions, and just as valid. Okay, so what would happen if a neurotypical engages with an autistic person, but there's a new manual and the parent has adjusted to the autistic child's needs for processing time? Well, this is how it looks. So this was a video given to me by a family that I worked with a long time ago. And they're just eating mangoes together. And mom was practicing to use longer pauses to give her time to observe and to process and to think, what should I say or do next? And by giving herself time to process, that's also helpful to this child to have time to respond.
Wow, you really like your mango, huh? It's one of Mama's favorite fruits, mango. So sweet. You remember when you were eating the mango and it fell? It jumped in your pajamas? That was funny. It's really sweet and it's really smooth when it goes inside your mouth. I like eating dessert with you. I'm done. Finish all of it. Yum. The mango skin looks like a boat.
Okay, so that's how it looks. And when I compare baby Emma playing peekaboo and this clip, I do see the connection. I do see the back and forth. It may feel uncomfortable for all of you watching this because of the pauses, but it is much, much needed. And if you see the two of them like engaging today, it looks much different. But this is the process of rebuilding that trust. But it may look like this, right? But I think it was a sweet moment for the two of them to share. And it's always about connection. The goal is communication and building trust and not speech. I always say to parents that they are not therapists. Their autistic child doesn't want mommy to be therapist. They want mommy to be mommy. So when we are with our autistic child at home, we should just be ourselves and be there for each other. It's not about your child, it's about you and your child together. So that connection is the first step. And the second one is very important. Start using ACC or alternative communication methods, visual communication methods as early as possible. So you can really unlock and empower our kiddos to know that they can ask for help as themselves. So include that, work with your speech therapist to build that at home and at school. Communication is two-way, of course, and autistic people want to connect, of course, and share our stories. We have a lot. We always think about a lot of things, but we just don't always have the ability to share because we know it's the way we share it is not what is expected. Model and facilitate instead of prompting and repetitions. So an engagement is very fluid. It's almost like it doesn't matter who says what, who does what. It's very fluid. And when you look at this mango clip, I think they're working towards that. They're making that adjustment. So that's where a lot of people will have to start, right? As opposed to asking direct questions or using instructions. It's not very natural and it feels very uncomfortable if the adult just keeps repeating the same questions or instructions over and over again. Slowing down, using longer pauses, and really take our child's lead. Sometimes if they're in the sensory overload, that's not a good time to connect or start or sharing. I already talked about authentic communication in general is full of imperfections. Okay, so here is a closing video from Ben. Ben is 21 years old. And before I forget, I gave Iris this PowerPoint. So you have all my contact information there. I do my advocacy on Instagram most consistently. And we just launched our sensory inclusive business certification for businesses in the community. So bring them to better community to get certified. So you will have this. And I also give Iris social media platform that is really useful for me as a mom, as a professional, for different reasons. So you can access that and share it. So this is Ben's video. So Ben was verbal when he was 2. He had regressive form of autism. So he really had very clear memories of him being able to speak. And he's a great advocate for non-speaking autistic people. And this is the video he gave me to share.
Let's try and calm your body. I am in A space C S T A N T space. I'm in a constant B A T T T T L E. You got it. You're gonna rock it again. You're gonna rock it again. W I T H with, get it, M Y space B O D Y. I'm in a constant battle with my body. I am an 18-year-old young man with non-speaking autism. I so often wish I could go back in time to the days where I could talk and better handle sensory input. I love and cherish those days. If I could speak, I believe my voice would be quite deep, because my younger brother has a deep voice.
If I were to sound like a celebrity, I'd like it to be like Errol Flynn. The old-time movie actor. He played Robin Hood and Don Juan. And he had a very smooth voice I admire. When I was a toddler, I could speak.
Cow.
I could have real conversations about all kinds of topics with all kinds of people. My mom said I had advanced language use for my age. I don't remember particular words I said, as there were really so many. And then there weren't. At all. When I turned 3, my life started to change drastically. I began to have limited speech out loud. And because I couldn't speak, I was suddenly seen as non-thinking. No longer did people regard me worthy of a true education. It made me feel like I'd been mislabeled and discarded by society. During this time, I continued to teach myself all kinds of things by observing the environment around me intensely. No one knew I was learning this information. It was all stuck inside of me. This went on for about 10 years. One day, my mum was reading me a book. "Point to the octopus," she said. And I did, but it wasn't the octopus she expected. After that, she took me to someone that could teach me how to use a letterboard. It took about a year to reach open-ended communication with my speech-language pathologist. It took even longer for me to be able to openly communicate with my mom. For the first time in a very long time, I felt I was both known and heard. I'm 18 now, and I feel I'll still be missing out on many of the symbolic acts of passage for becoming an adult in our society. I'm unable to drive a car, go on an adventure alone. I'd like to have a personal relationship with a nice young woman who gets and fully appreciates my gifts and attributes. I recently attended a party of teens, gathering to promote greater gun control. It was so rewarding to be a part of something bigger than myself and outside of the world of autism. I voted for the first time last year, and I'll keep on voting. Even though I'd love to have the ability to speak my thoughts, I do feel that I've found a voice.
that was it. I said that we concluded the presentation, so now I can take some questions. I will be presenting with Ben and Eric Garcia, the author of We're Not Broken, on April 4th. It would be an online presentation, so I could also give you the link. It's a free presentation sponsored by our library. So I can give you that link too, so you can meet Ben. Does anybody have any questions?
I'm not seeing anyone has put in any questions right now, but if folks have questions, please feel free to unmute. And
yeah, you can unmute yourself if you have any questions.
Hi, can I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm a little emotional from that video, sorry.
Oh, I understand. Yeah.
I have a question about sensory integration and regulation. Yes. We have a 4-year-old, almost 4-year-old, and he's dealing with a lot of anxiety right now. And what do you think would be the best way to help him meet his sensory needs? Is it additional OT support, or he is verbal? He tells us what he likes for sensory stuff. We have a sensory choice board with pictures.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're just not getting even close to what he needs.
Yeah.
And do you think going with like maybe trying another OT or adding additional OT support, or just keep working on it at home? Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah. So I think it's very hard for parents of little kids, because when we see our child unhappy, it hurts and we just want to fix it, and there's really no quick fix. And I think the best thing we can do when our kiddo struggles is really to slow down and actually simplify, because if you are in a constant crisis mindset where you end up adding more pieces or like doing extra stuff, that's not helping, because your child is already telling you, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I don't feel good. Something is not working and I don't know why, right? Because little kids can't identify emotions and stuff like that. So I would probably, if your child is in school, that's already a lot, for someone whose sensory system is really like, their nervous system is still developing. And a lot of the behaviors that we're seeing is communicating that they don't feel supported. They don't feel like the environment is helping them to regulate and learn, So I think he has told you very, very clearly that's his message. I would probably, for example, if he's in school, maybe take a school break, take a mental health school break. I do that with my teens from time to time, and just really slow things down and just take a break from everything. If, for example, if you love swimming, water, or take baths, and you just honor that, help him to give him activities at home or opportunities where he can feel good again, whatever that may be, right? So I hope that helps. I mean, our impulse is like, we need to fix this, so we need to like change. But for an autistic child, being in a car to go to therapy, that has, for me at least, it's being in a car it's a lot for me, because all of the sensory input. So going to places and then having to learn to adjust to a new person, that takes a lot, so yeah, I don't know if I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, that's super helpful. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Don't speed up, slow down.
I have a question.
Sure.
Hi, I have a 13-year-old daughter, and we're trying to give her some more independence. It's been tricky because, she's vulnerable. I don't know how much I trust her judgment sometimes, and just trying to figure out how to give. Can you speak to that? What steps to take, resources for gaining independence as an autistic teen?
Well, if the goal is for her to take ownership for things that, it depends. Are you talking about schoolwork? Are you talking about personal care? Can you give me more specific?
In the community, more independence in the community, being able to, go to the store on her own.
I see.
Things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So the best way to nurture independence is to really be a partner to our kiddos. So if they don't want to do certain things by themselves, truly, they're telling you, I don't know everything that I need to do. So the best way is to give yourself a role and also give her a role. So let's say going to Safeway, right? So let's say she loves to bake. Then you can make it a project, look at YouTube videos, recipes, watch Netflix baking shows or whatever. And then you have a goal that you can share, which is maybe trying this recipe, right? So you find a common interest first. And then the day you decide, let her check her schedule, because 13-year-olds is getting really busy, getting that age into that age. Empower her to take the lead. What day do you think would be a good day for us to go shopping at the supermarket? And then ask her, do you want to make a shopping list to make this recipe? Or do you want to, just because making a shopping list, that's actually a really good exercise. Someday she has to do that for herself. Then when you go to the store, continue to give her an active role. How about you do the first top of the list and I do the bottom part of the list, just give her active roles, but make it a partnership, a collaboration, because that's something that she needs to be able to do, is to take other people's input and also to give her input. Think about interdependence to get things started. And that can really apply in anything that's difficult right now, so don't focus on the problem. So that's one phrase I want you to take away from tonight is don't focus on the problem, because you want to build the foundations. The skills are there, but the way they see themselves and their competence level, the way that the self-awareness is not there yet. That needs to be developed slowly. So you want to have a bottom-up approach instead of top to bottom, because all their lives has always been top to bottom because their voices are not included, right? So at home, it's really our opportunity to figure that out. How would they be able to achieve things that seems really simple at times, but they can't seem to remember to do it, like brushing teeth, for example. Well, brushing teeth requires so many complex steps. Brushing teeth involves like feeling the taste and then the smell of toothpaste. For somebody who has sensory sensitivity, that's not an easy thing. And I think as a parent, you just have to give them room. Okay, if they're good enough, they're doing maybe 40%. You would like them to do more than that because they're wearing braces. But how much can you give in, and what's the compromise? That's my suggestion.
Thank you.
Sure. Does anybody have? We'll take one more question. No questions? Okay. Okay, well, you should have the PowerPoint and the resources. And Iris, I'll give you the registration link for the event on April 4th as well. And it's in the evening at 6 o'clock. So.
Yes, thank you so much, Maisie. We're so glad to have had the opportunity to have learned from you this evening. I really appreciate so much the way you've shared your personal and your professional experiences to help give us as parents and educators ideas for how to better support our children. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. And
you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah. So thank you so much.
One more question.
Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. I know it's the end of the session, but what is your suggestion on too much electronics? My grandson is like so attached to them, and I feel like when he is on that iPad, he's in his own bubble, watching things over and over, and I mean unlimited time. I know it's end of session and
that's okay. I mean, that is a good question. What you have to think about is why he needs the screen.
I have no idea.
Right. Because it helps him to regulate. It helps him to escape. So he needs what's that the limit? Well, I think that instead of thinking about how much is the limit, you want to work with him to have activities that is productive and fun for him too. So if he's little, I think
he's 7.
Right.
He's 7 years old.
Yeah, he's still little. Yeah, you want to do other things with him, like and maybe create a family schedule and so on. So you just want to work with him to have a different type of leisure activities with him that you can join with him. So yeah. Okay.
It's a battle.
Sure.
Of iPads. It's a battle of iPads, and
it's
not productive. He's learning things, and out there are all kinds of things. They're not all educational. They're nonsense, eating habits, nonsense, mixing stuff, and so he imitates that. They mix stuff that they don't belong with each other, and he tries to imitate that and do that, and he loves that.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, I think this is the 21st century. I think a lot of adults are doing the same thing. That's a screen has become, a way of life for a lot of adults as well. So we just have to help. We have to model mindful, like when we have dinner, there's just no phones. We put it away. We don't charge our phones in the bedroom, for example. My kids don't have any computers in their bedroom. So it's just modeling and continuing the conversation and tell them why in the context, and don't just take it away, but do something that's just as productive with them, and if you don't have that many, that's where you have to explore, whatever that may be, right? Cooking, exercising, going out, building things.
He loves cooking. He loves cooking and cutting.
Perfect.
At
Cooking is
bedtime,
great.
he needs that iPad, though. He needs the iPad to even go to sleep.
Yeah, but a lot of people are, a lot of people are actually doing that as well. So, but of course, you have to, don't just take it away, but tell him, this is, help him set boundaries for himself with your help, and use the visuals, like the iPad stops or all the screen stops at this time.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
iPad's visual, iPad stop.
Yeah, you give him a warning, because if you just suddenly take it away, that would be, you don't want it. That's rude. Also, you don't want to do it. So you want to talk and work with him.
Say in 5 minutes, or just show him the time, or advance notice. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. And
You're welcome.
Congratulations on achieving such a high level with your difficulties in life. And thank you. You're welcome. We're inspired.
Thank you for being here. Thank you so much, Iris, for everything, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Maisie. And I'm getting other comments here in the chat saying, please thank Maisie for us. We appreciate this so much.
Of course. Anytime. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Maisie. I'm going to sign off.
Have a good night. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Thank you.